My neighbors had their fingers on the panic button when I built a cemetery in our yard last August, only a few months after moving in. But I assured them their children and pets were safe because this graveyard was for my wife. I started with an assortment of headstones from Dollar Tree, Walmart, Party City, Home Depot, and Lowe's. I traced the bigger tombstones onto 1-inch foam board to double their thickness. I cut them with a jigsaw, but a small kitchen knife also works for all you budding Chuckies and Jasons out there. I made extra copies of the larger headstones to hold the smaller, flimsier Dollar Tree and Walmart grave markers. I glued the foam together with a combination of foam board adhesive and spray adhesive. The spray gives the initial grab and the foam board adhesive gives a more permanent bond. I used a Sureform tool to give the new thicker headstone some character and to blend away the seams. I added bases to some of the headstones using a combination of 1 and 2-inch foam. To weather the stones, I sprayed water on the foam and then hit the sprayed area with a heat gun. I also used the Sureform tool and random orbit sander to add rough patches to the gravestones and simulate chipped stone. I started making cracks with a utility knife, and while the cracks looked good, this was way too time consuming for a whole cemetery, so I switched to a serrated knife and gouged out the cracks in a jiffy. Hey, it's a graveyard. What are the residents gonna do? Complain? To make the foam look stony and to protect it from the elements, I painted every headstone with 2 coats of Drylock cement and masonry waterproofer. This provided the base color upon which I will add more paint to make these gravestones look ancient, ghoulish, and definitely full of ghosts. Aging the tombstones started with a base layer of black and brown paint. I used a sponge to splotch the paint here and there. I wasn't going for full coverage, just a splotchy little mess. I then sprayed a watered down black and brown color in some areas, followed by a watered down moss color in other areas. Then water. Turns out water is not only good for the living, but it's great for the dead too. It washes the paint from some areas and carries it down to others. It creates drips and runs of color that look like lichen blooms and algae streaks. I used only 4 colors to age these tombstones: black, brown, moss green, and rust. There's no artistic ability required to make tombstones realistic enough to scare the neighbors into almost calling the cops. I have about as much artistic ability as a drunken giraffe with finger paints, but look what I did here with 4 simple colors and a spray bottle of water. I secured the tombstones by pounding 3-foot stakes into the ground and then zip tying the stakes to cable tie mounts on the back of the tombstones. Some of these mounts eventually failed in the wind, so I switched to Velcro industrial strength strips, and they held great. For some of the bigger headstones, I used more than one stake. And here is our cemetery all decked out for the big night. So many happy headstones all gathered together with a bunch of other friends hanging out too. My shrimp witch wife was thrilled with her spooky haunted cemetery. In fact, I have a hunch I'll be making her an even spookier one next Halloween, but we'll just see about that. Now I'm going to show you how I made a much better version of these Grandin Road tombstones. After tracing, cutting, and gluing together 2 headstone-shaped pieces of 1-inch foam, I glued a small Walmart tombstone onto the bigger blue one. This saved me a whole lot of carving that may have needed a bit of artistic talent. This is the time of year my wife wants everything to be more creepy, so I glued a half skull to the top of the tombstone. I used my Sureform tool to shape and age the tombstone, and then I made a 2-tiered base from 2-inch foam. I dry locked the headstone, painted it to look ancient and evil, and then I made candles. I cut PVC pipe into different lengths for my candles and dripped hot glue down the sides for a melted wax look. I painted them off-white to match the Grandin Road candles, and then I put LED tea lights on top. I hot glued the candles to the tombstones and planted them in the yard. These Grandin Road dupes look much better than their inspiration, and for the price we would have paid for one, I was able to make this entire lovely cemetery for my beautiful wife. It's the least she deserves for putting up with me all these years. In fact, I saw her out there the other day digging a spot just for me. Isn't she so thoughtful and sweet? Like, comment, and subscribe for more Halloween hijinks as the wicked shrimp and I turn the burners on high.